All right, this is going to be the second video for Notes 14. We're going to keep factoring trinomials. All right, so remember three-term polynomials, but this time I was not as nice. Everything is not positive, right? We're going to have to pay attention to our signs now. So same process as always. First thing I'm going to ask is, do you have a GCF? The answer is no. All right, cool. I'm going to write my two factors here. And my leading term here is just simply p squared. So I'm going to go ahead and split that up, p in one factor, p in the other factor. And I'm still, as always, looking to add up to, in this case, a positive 6. And I want to multiply to a positive, this is positive, so positive 5. Well, here's the thing. There's only two numbers that multiply to 5 if you're talking about integers, and that's 1 times 5. So if everything's positive, so plus 1 plus 5, quick check. All right, p times p is going to be p squared. 1 times 5 is 5. So positive 1p plus 5p is absolutely 6p. So yes, I have absolutely got my right factors here. As I've said in past videos, order will never matter with your two factors. So if you wrote down this factor first, then that's fine. They're the same thing. All right, moving over to part B here. All right, x squared minus 2x minus 15, GCF, no. All right, so let's start paying attention to this. X squared, we're going to split it. So there's x. I am looking to add 2. Now this is where it's going to start getting tricky. We've got a negative 2. All right, so we got to be careful about that sign. And I want to multiply to negative 15. All right, I'm going to ignore the negatives for right now. I'm just think what multiplies to 15. So 1 times 15 and 3 times 5. Now, I don't care what signs you deal with the 1 and the 15. There is no way that I'm going to get a negative 2 out of that. However, if I look at 3 and 5, if I make the 3 positive and I make the 5 negative, let's see what happens. So a positive times a negative is going to make me a negative. All right, cool. That's going to help. If I take positive 3 times negative 5, negative 15, 3, whoops, let me let that just fade. 3 here plus negative 5 is going to be the negative 2 that I'm looking for. All right. So if you're trying to multiply to a negative number, you're going to have oppositely signed numbers. If you're trying to add up to a negative, the larger number, right, the larger of your two factors here is going to have to be negative. So x plus 3, x minus 5. You could, of course, flip them around and have x minus 5 and then x plus 3. The full factors still match, right? X plus 3. Order won't matter on those two factors, though. All right, let's move on to part C here. So do you have a GCF? No. Let's go ahead and draw the two factors in. We're going to split the x and x. All right, we are trying to add to a negative 13 and multiply to a positive 30. This is going to get a little weird, all right? Because you are trying to multiply to a positive, the only way to multiply to a positive is if both of your numbers are negative or both of your numbers are positive. Well, if I want to add up to a negative, I'm going to have a two negative numbers. A negative times a negative is going to get me that positive, and then a negative plus a negative will get me the larger negative there. Now, what's going to work here? Well, if I think about things that multiply to 30, 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 5, and nope, not 3 times 5. What am I doing here? 3 times 10. That's the one I... what? And I knew there's a 5 in my head for a reason. It's going to be 5 times 6. All right. 1 and 30 are absolutely out. 5 and 6 are absolutely out. Now, students get a little confused about the 2 to 15 and the 3 and 10. They're like, wait a minute. Both of those could work. No, they can't. Because both of these have to be negative, I actually need to add up to 13, not subtract. The way that you would make the 15 and 2 work is if 15 were negative and 2 were positive, that's not going to multiply correctly. So just please, please, please be careful. Do the double checks as needed. So having done all the work I did, I'm still going to double check it. So x times x is x squared. Good. Negative 3 times negative 10 is absolutely positive 30. Negative 3x, negative 10x gets me the negative 13x. I have done the correct factors. All right, moving right along. Part D here, GCF, no. All right, so let's go ahead and split the m squared. Looking for things that add up to 4 and multiply to negative 32. Immediately I know I'm going to have one positive, one negative, right? I got to figure out which one's which. So let's see, things that multiply to 32. 1 times 32, not going to get me a 4. 2 times 16, no. 3 doesn't go into 32. 4 times 8. Now 4 times 8 I can make work. If I make the 8 positive and the 4 negative, do a quick check on this. 8 times negative 4 is negative 32. And if I have 8 positive 8m and then negative 4m, absolutely that will get me the 4m in the middle. So answer D is good. All right, those are my factors. All right, sliding down, there's part E. Now, part E and part C are identical problems. The variable just changed. So I'm not going to walk through this problem. I'm simply going to change the variable and use the exact same factor pair, right? We are adding up to negative 13. We are still multiplying to positive 30 there. So that's the same answer as part C. Just change the variable up. All right, part F. Do I have a GCF? No. Real quick thing that I want to add in here. There's a little negative 1 there. We're lazy. We don't put it in there, but it does exist. So that's going to be add. That's going to be multiply. There we go. And let's see what we can do here. X. So I want things that multiply to negative 12. So I'm going to need one positive, one negative. Order won't matter. And I want those same numbers to add up to a negative 1. Negative 4, positive 3. All right, if you want to hear the quick double check, negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. I promise you it works. All right, and then last but not least for this video, we're going to do part G. GCF, no. The k squared term, we're going to go ahead and split. So we're looking to add up to positive 5 and multiply to a negative 24. If we're multiplying to a negative, one's positive, one's negative. Let's see, 8 and negative 3. So quick check, k times k squared. Negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. Minus 3k plus 8k makes the positive 5k right there. Those are your two factors. And that also takes me to the end of this video for Notes 14. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, let me know.